Clock. How come his wife called us, Neely? She knows the police business, Neely said. She called Central first, and then us. She knows we take a look at most suicides. Central should be giving the call to the district any second now. They were all silent again, glancing up at the police speaker on the wall. It had been quiet for a few minutes. Now, as if Neely's comment were a cue, it coughed metallically, and the police announcer's flat voice said, 980, 981, report. That's his district, I think, Carmody said. Deary lived in West in the 98th, didn't he? Yeah, that's right, Katz said. On Sycamore Street, they're sending the wagon and the street sergeant's car out there. The police announcer, connected with the cars he had asked to report, gave his orders. Hospital case, 5861 Sycamore Street. Hospital case, Neely said with a short laugh. He drummed his fingers on his desk and looked up at the clock. The double doors of the Homicide Bureau swung open, and a young man in a damp trench coat came in and walked around the counter. He glanced at the three detectives, noticing their expressions. What's up? He said. Tom Deary's wife just called, Neely said. She says Tom killed himself about 15, 20 minutes ago, shot himself. Burke said, Hey, you knew him, didn't you, Bannion? Sure, I knew him, Dave Bannion said slowly, as he took off his trench coat and dropped it over the back of a chair. He was a large, wide-shouldered man in his middle 30s, with tanned, even features and steady gray eyes. Standing alone, he didn't seem particularly big. It was only when Burke, a tall man himself, strolled over beside him that Bannion's size became apparent. He stood inches taller than Burke, and his 230 pounds were evenly distributed on a huge, rangy frame. Did Deary have any kids? Burke said. No, I don't think so, Bannion said. He had known Deary in the perfunctory way he knew dozens of men in the police department. Deary had been a slender, graying man with an intelligent, alert, but unrevealing face. Bannion had passed him in the hall, had said hello to him, had checked clerical matters with him on several occasions, and that was the extent of their relationship. He glanced at Neely. I'll take a ride out there, he said. Burke might as well come along, too. Burke nodded at the Negro. I'm working on this job, Dave. Want me to drop it? What is it? Well, he might be the character who killed that gas station attendant in the Northeast last week. The 10th detectives picked him up and sent him down. I didn't kill nobody, the Negro said, standing, his large bony hands working spasmodically. His head turned, his eyes touched each face in the room, frightened, helpless, defiant. Sit down, the uniformed cop said to him. Burke smiled pleasantly at Bannion. I could find out in 10 little minutes if you just let... He stopped at the look on Bannion's face. Okay, it was just a stray thought, he said, shrugging elaborately. There won't be any of that stuff on my shift, Bannion said. Okay, Burke said. Bannion walked over to the Negro, who seemed to sense that he had got a break of some kind. We just want the truth from you, Bannion said. If you've done nothing wrong, you got nothing to worry about. But if you have, we'll find out. Remember that. I done nothing wrong, the Negro said excitedly. I was walking... All right, I'll talk to you when I get back, Bannion said. I don't have the time now. Burke, you stick at it. He glanced at Katz and Carmody. All right, any volunteers? Carmody sighed. Yeah, let's go, he said. Katz's wife would raise hell if he got his feet wet tonight. Ha, Katz said expressionlessly, and began dealing himself a hand of solitaire. The Homicide Bureau was on the first floor of City Hall, flanked by the rackets detail and the vice squad. Bannion walked down the long, wide, dusty hallway, a step ahead of Carmody, nodding occasionally to detectives and patrolmen coming in for duty. He left the building by a side door and went through the hall's cold and drafty concourse to the parking area reserved for police cars. As they were crossing the sidewalk, the rain hit both men in a driving shower, and they grabbed their hat brims and ran for it. Bannion slid in behind the wheel of his car and opened the right-hand door for Carmody, who climbed in, panting and shivering. You always get 'em on nights like this, Dave, he said disgustedly. Thomas Francis Deary had lived in a West Side three-flat apartment building on a tree-bordered residential street. When Bannion got there, a red car and a wagon from the 98th were parked in front of the building, and a uniformed cop was standing in the vestibule. It was raining hard, but half a dozen persons were huddled together on the sidewalk watching the police cars in the building. Bannion nodded to the man in the vestibule, who wore a wet, shining rubber slicker over his uniform. "Yeah, it's on the first floor, Sarge," he said, tossing Bannion a salute. "Thanks," Bannion said. The door of Deary's apartment was open, and two big men from the wagon were standing just inside the hallway, chatting together, while rainwater dripped from their slickers onto the highly polished wooden floor. A tall man in a black overcoat came out of a door to the right of the hallway and said to them, "Okay, you can have him now." "Hold it a minute," Bannion said. He didn't know the man in the black overcoat, but assumed he was a detective from the 98th. "We're from Homicide." "Yeah, you had a ride for nothing," the man in the black overcoat said, smiling. "It's nothing for you boys. I'm Carrot, 98th Detectives." Bannion introduced himself, and they shook hands. "I heard about you," Carrot said, still smiling. He looked Bannion up and down and from side to side. "I heard you were big, and I heard right." Bannion was used to this sort of thing, and it didn't bother him. He'd always been the outsized one, in high school and college, even on football teams. He smiled at Carrot and then said, "What's the deal here?" "He's in here," Carrot said, and led the way into the room on the right of the hallway. The dead man lay on his side, curled up in front of a desk that was placed under a curtained window. Bannion knelt and inspected the wound in his right temple and the gun in his right hand. The wound was ugly, and the revolver was a nickel-plated .32 with black hand grips. After a moment or so, Bannion stood and glanced around the room, automatically noting its contents and arrangements. There was the desk turned sideways to the window for better light, with a portable typewriter on it, and a wooden correspondence box half full of papers. A large, comfortable reading chair was in one corner, a floor lamp beside it, and a row of bookcases stood against the opposite wall. 3 Audubon prints were hung above the bookcases, and a large glass ashtray with half a dozen cigarette stubs in it was on the desk beside the typewriter. It was a pleasant room, a luxury that a man without children could provide for himself in a small city apartment. "It looks like he was kneeling down when he shot himself," Carrot said, nodding at the body. "The way he's curled up, I mean." Bannion checked the window, found it locked. He turned away from it and glanced about the room. "Where's Mrs. Deary?" he said. "She's in the living room." "What did she have to say?" "Well, she says she came in here after dinner. She stayed in the kitchen cleaning up and then went into the living room to listen to the radio. About half an hour later, she heard a shot. She came in, found him just like he is now." "Was there any note?" "No, not a thing." Bannion pushed his hat back on his forehead and sat down at Deary's desk. He glanced through the papers in the correspondence box. They were bills chiefly, a few sales letters, and one personal note from a friend in Hashville, dated a week previously. The friend, whose name was Mort Chamberlain, apologized for not answering Deary's letter of 4 months back. He'd been busy with the office and his family, he explained, and then made a joke about his laziness probably being the real reason. There wasn't much more in the letter. It seemed to be one of those cheerfully futile attempts to keep something going that had stopped a long, long time ago. "I told you had a ride for nothing," Carrot said. "Yes, this isn't anything for us," Bannion said. "Mrs. Deary have any guesses about why he did it?" She said he hadn't been feeling well lately and was worried about it," Carrot said. "Well, I guess that's the answer," Bannion said. He went through the drawers of the desk carefully, not looking for anything in particular, simply following his usual methodical working habits. He found 2 insurance policies, each in the amount of $5,000 and made out to Mary Ellen Deary, the stubs of 2 checkbooks with all entries written in a neat, small hand, and an envelope containing a few departmental circulars clarifying policies in regard to police pensions, time off, and so forth. There was also a box of paper clips, several pencils, and a box of stationery. That was all. Bannion closed the drawers, after replacing everything as he had found it, and walked over and glanced at the volumes in the bookcases.